Talking about best Oscars wins of all time is a thing of past now. We are going to talk Bayout worst Oscar wins of all time. And believe me, some of your favorite acting legends got their Oscars just because Academy wanted to make them Oscar-winning actor. They did not deserve that at all. Let's start it. First, Al Pacino, Scent of a Woman. Al Pacino had one of the most extraordinary runs in cinema history during the 1970s, racking up iconic roles in The Godfather, Dog Day Afternoon, Serpico, and more. Somehow, he remained Oscar-less through these towering performances, each more deserving than the last. By the time Scent of a Woman rolled around in 1992, the Academy seemed to decide that it was simply Pacino's time, bestowing upon him the Best Actor trophy for a role that felt more like a caricature than a character study. The film itself focuses on a blind, retired army officer who veers between poignant vulnerability and bombastic outbursts of hoo-ha, a catchphrase that quickly became fodder for parody. Despite some touching dramatic moments, the performance overall is loud, unwieldy, and pales in comparison to the layered nuance Pacino displayed in many of his earlier Oscar-less roles. Moreover, Scent of a Woman is built on a somewhat manipulative storyline, with the blind colonel's over-the-top antics overshadowing the subtlety and depth Pacino was capable of in his prime. The Academy's decision seems more like an overdue Lifetime Achievement nod, rather than a reward for the best acting of that year. 2. Cuba Gooding Jr., Jerry Maguire. When Cuba Gooding Jr. swept onto the stage at the 69th Academy Awards, his exuberant acceptance speech for Best Supporting Actor became instantly legendary. While Jerry Maguire gave him a lively, charismatic platform as the fast-talking Rod Tidwell, many argue his performance, though entertaining, was hardly monumental enough to surpass all other contenders that year. The bigger issue, however, is what came next. Gooding's post-Oscar career descended into a series of poor choices in underwhelming projects, from forgettable comedies to critically reviled dramas. It's almost as though winning the Oscar put undue pressure on him to live up to lofty expectations he wasn't prepared to meet. Some critics go so far as to suggest that his Academy Award should be revoked in jest, given how little he has done to sustain or enhance that early promise. While it's common for Oscar winners to have ups and downs, the gap between Gooding's award-winning role and the quality of his subsequent work remains among the starkest in recent memory. 3. Holly Hunter, The Piano. Holly Hunter's Best Actress victory for The Piano has been hotly debated since 1993. Jane Campion's atmospheric drama places Hunter in the role of a mute pianist, Ada, who travels to a remote New Zealand coastline for an arranged marriage. The film attempts to blend romance, repression, and a strange sense of liberation, but its central character can be off-putting, especially in the way she manipulates those around her, most notably through her silent, yet pointed expressions. Some viewers find Ada unlikable to the point that the film's emotional center feels hollow or off-balance. Critics who loathe this Oscar win argue that Hunter's performance is limited by the very condition that the film deems central: her muteness. Without dialogue, the role depends heavily on facial expressions and physical acting, which Hunter does well, but perhaps not with enough depth to justify an Oscar in such a crowded, competitive year. The claim that the one good thing is that she didn't speak may sound harsh, yet it reflects a sentiment that the character is written so narrowly that her silence becomes more of a gimmick than a profound storytelling tool. 4. Judi Dench, Shakespeare in Love. Dame Judi Dench is undeniably one of the greatest living actresses, but her Best Supporting Actress win for Shakespeare in Love still sparks controversy. With fewer than 10 minutes of total screen time, mostly spent sitting and observing the performance of a play within the movie, her role as Queen Elizabeth Darn feels more like an extended cameo than a character central to the plot. Detractors argue that if the Academy wanted to honor Dench for her formidable talent, they should have done so for her extraordinary work in films like Mrs. Brown the previous year, where her performance was truly central and memorable. Instead, they gave her the Oscar for what some see as an old bat cameo, awarding minimal screen time that did little to showcase the full range of Dench's ability. It's often cited as one of the clearest instances of a career Oscar, the Academy's way of making up for earlier oversights by rewarding a lesser performance at a later time. Fünfte Halle Berry, Monsters Ball. Halle Berry's Best Actress win for Monsters Ball in 2002 was a historic moment. She became the first black woman to receive that honor. Yet, the film's manipulative plot and the timing of the Academy's choice have led to lingering doubts about the authenticity of her win. Berry's performance is strong in moments of raw emotional outpouring, but some critics point out that the entire film feels like an engineered tearjerker, using heavy themes such as racism and grief to force audience sympathy. Perhaps even more troubling is the idea that, in a year when Sidney Poitier received a Lifetime Achievement Award, the Academy felt compelled to crown Berry as Best Actress to create a triumphant, symbolic narrative. Detractors wonder why other black actresses, like Angela Bassett in What's Love Got to Do with It, or Whoopi Goldberg in The Color Purple, were overlooked when they arguably delivered performances of equal or greater depth in years past. The aftermath of Berry's win also raised questions, as subsequent roles failed to capitalize on or justify her Oscar success.
Hollywood soon beckoned, and he transitioned to film, earning big for hits like Grand Hotel. Yet Barrymore's fortunes took a downward turn due to a lethal cocktail of extravagant living, chronic alcoholism, and multiple costly divorces. His spiraling expenditures forced him into bankruptcy in 1937, with creditors hounding him for unpaid bills. Despite these challenges, he kept working to pay off debts, accepting parts in films that never lived up to the prestige he once commanded on stage. Reportedly, Barrymore's drinking worsened as his financial obligations mounted, and even longtime admirers and studios grew hesitant to invest in his projects. By the time of his death in 1942, he had lost much of the regal stature he'd once enjoyed, leaving behind liabilities his estate struggled to settle. While lauded in retrospect for his groundbreaking performances, Barrymore's life also stands as a sobering tale of how personal demons and unchecked spending can dismantle even the most revered careers. 6. Dorothy Dandridge. Dorothy Dandridge was drowning in financial woes when the world should have been celebrating her stardom as the first African-American woman to be nominated for an Oscar in a leading role. During her prime, her powerful performances in Carmen Jones and her appearances in high-profile nightclubs brought her steady fame and a respectable income. But between unscrupulous financial managers and chronic racial discrimination, she saw her earnings evaporate. When Dandridge discovered that her advisors had swindled her out of $150,000, she also learned she owed $139,000 in back taxes to the IRS. Desperate, she was forced to sell her Hollywood home and place her daughter in a state hospital for care. With dwindling career opportunities, Dandridge resorted to performing in small clubs to stay afloat, a stark contrast to the sold-out venues she once commanded. Filing for bankruptcy offered little relief. Lawsuits and ever-present debts continued to mount. By 1965, she hoped to revive her film career in Mexico, but tragedy struck when she was found dead in her modest West Hollywood apartment at just 42. A mere $24 in her bank account served as a heartbreaking reminder that a groundbreaking star never escaped the financial hardships that plagued her final days. 7th, Ed Wood. Ed Wood's financial world spiraled into ruin long before he drew his final breath, overshadowing a career that, despite its campy legacy, once held genuine promise. Known for low-budget cult classics like Plan 9 from Outer Space and Glen or Glenda, Wood generated income in the 1950s and 1960s by churning out pulp novels and quick turnaround screenplays. Unfortunately, his earnings, often around $700 to $1,000 per novel, disappeared as fast as he made them.
8th, Sandra Bullock. The Blind Side. Sandra Bullock is often deemed America's sweetheart, known for her charm, comedic timing, and warm screen presence. However, her Best Actress win for The Blind Side in 2010 has long been debated. The movie itself walks a fine line between heartfelt sports drama and cliched white savior narrative, with Bullock's character, Lee Ann Tuohy, portrayed as an almost saintly figure who rescues a disadvantaged young black athlete from poverty. While Bullock demonstrates her signature likability and a certain brassy confidence, it's arguable whether the performance goes beyond surface-level empathy and fiery one-liners. The real-life story, though inspiring, might have been better suited for a more challenging depiction rather than the mostly sanitized version the film offers. Many critics feel the Academy should have waited for a more substantial, complex role for Bullock. She has shown dramatic depth in films like Gravity and comedic versatility in hits such as The Heat. Her win for The Blind Side simply doesn't reflect her full range. Moreover, 2009 was a strong year for leading actresses, and some equally compelling performances were overshadowed by Bullock's crowd-pleasing turn. 9th, Renee Zellweger, Cold Mountain. Renee Zellweger won the Best Supporting Actress Oscar for Cold Mountain, 2003, but the decision has often been called into question for feeling more like a catch-up award than recognition of the best performance of that year. In Cold Mountain, Zellweger plays Ruby Thews, an outspoken Southern farmhand with a heavy accent and a penchant for delivering sassy quips about the harsh realities of the Civil War era. Critics argue that her portrayal veers into caricature, overemphasizing the accent and mannerisms to the point of distraction. It also pales when compared to her subtler, more layered performances in earlier films like Jerry Maguire, Nurse Betty, or Chicago. The suspicion is that the Academy felt Zellweger was overdue after several nominations and high-profile roles, so they awarded her for a showier turn in a prestige project with a star-studded cast. Furthermore, the film itself, adapted from a celebrated novel, underwhelmed some viewers with its uneven pacing and forced romantic elements, leaving her performance standing out mostly for its flamboyant quirks rather than any true dramatic depth. 10. Tommy Lee Jones, The Fugitive. Tommy Lee Jones is an actor known for his trademark deadpan delivery and tough demeanor, traits which he deploys to full effect in The Fugitive, 1993. As U.S. Marshal Samuel Gerard, Jones chases Harrison Ford's wrongfully accused Richard Kimball through a series of high-stakes action sequences. While the performance is undeniably entertaining and made certain lines instantly iconic, many critics feel it's not nuanced enough to merit an Oscar. Worse yet, Jones's win came at the expense of Ralph Fiennes for Schindler's List, a performance widely regarded as one of the most chilling and transformative in cinematic history. Observers argue that the Academy simply chose to reward Jones's robust screen presence and commercial success at the time, overlooking the haunting brilliance Fiennes brought to Spielberg's Holocaust epic. The result? A fun but fairly standard cop role overshadowing a truly remarkable villainous turn. In retrospect, it's difficult not to see Jones's win as more of a nod to his overall career and popularity, rather than the best supporting performance of 1993. 11. Hilary Swank, $1 Million Baby and Boys Don't Cry. Hilary Swank has 2 Best Actress Oscars, one for her role as Brandon Teena in Boys Don't Cry, 1999, and another for her turn as Maggie Fitzgerald in Million Dollar Baby, 2004. Both films revolve around characters facing extreme adversity, one dealing with gender identity and violence, the other with a catastrophic boxing injury. Critics of her Oscar record note that Swank's career outside these two roles has been notably uneven, filled with movies that fail to live up to the prestige of her statuettes. This raises a question: are her Oscars a reflection of consistent excellence, or merely the result of lightning in a bottle, scripts that perfectly showcased her range in rare instances? There is also the argument that awarding her twice so quickly overshadows actresses with broader bodies of work who have never even won. Detractors believe that while she is convincing when embodying physically and emotionally demanding roles, her range outside such intense narratives is more limited. Some go further, suggesting the Academy was swayed by the inherent gravitas of these films' tragic arcs, rather than Swank's holistic capabilities as a performer. 12. Gwyneth Paltrow, Shakespeare in Love. When Shakespeare in Love swept the 1999 Academy Awards, the biggest jaw-dropper was Gwyneth Paltrow's Best Actress win. The film is a whimsical, fictionalized account of how William Shakespeare may have found inspiration for Romeo and Juliet. Paltrow's turn as Viola de Lesseps, a young noblewoman masquerading as a man to perform on stage, is charming in parts, but hardly revolutionary. Many critics feel her British accent is serviceable but unremarkable, and that her performance lacks the gravitas of her peers that year: Cate Blanchett, Elizabeth, and Fernanda Montenegro, Central Station, chief among them. Moreover, the strong suspicion that Harvey Weinstein's relentless campaigning tilted the odds in Paltrow's favor casts a long shadow over this win. In retrospect, Shakespeare in Love itself seems more like a frothy, cleverly written rom-com than an enduring classic, raising questions about the real reasons behind its Oscars success. Paltrow, while undeniably talented in certain roles, has never quite reached a similar peak of critical acclaim, further fueling the notion that this was a perfect storm of studio power, marketing, and politics at work. Shy Nasty, Nicole Kidman, The Hours. Nicole Kidman's Best Actress win for The Hours, 2002, has been subject to much debate. The film features Kidman as Virginia Woolf, complete with a prosthetic nose and a subdued, pensive demeanor to capture the writer's depression and genius. While Kidman undoubtedly conveys some sense of Woolf's torment, detractors argue that the performance leans heavily on external transformation rather than deep internal character work. The role's reliance on mannerisms and moody stares can feel more like a demonstration of method acting cliches than the creation of a fully realized person. Some maintain that Kidman's prior performances, especially her sly, incisive turn in To Die For or her exuberant flair in Moulin Rouge, deserved greater recognition. Meanwhile, The Hours is an ensemble piece, so Kidman's screen time is limited, and her portrayal occasionally gets overshadowed by the dynamism of Julianne Moore and Meryl Streep. The Academy's eagerness to reward Kidman for a serious role may have blinded voters to the performance's shortcomings, or, as skeptics suggest, they simply fell for the transformative allure of a fake nose. 14. Russell Crowe, Gladiator. Few can deny the epic appeal of Ridley Scott's Gladiator, 2000, featuring Russell Crowe as Maximus, a betrayed Roman general forced into slavery and gladiatorial combat. Crowe's growling intensity and physical transformation helped make the film a box office and cultural sensation. Yet, when examining Crowe's overall career, one can argue that his Gladiator performance, while charismatic, might not be the crowning achievement among his many remarkable turns. Films like The Insider showcased a more transformative effort, A Beautiful Mind provided greater emotional complexity, and L.A. Confidential revealed understated nuance. Even his early work in Romper Stomper demonstrated an unbridled ferocity that was arguably more challenging to pull off. Critics suggest the Academy was swept up in the grandeur of Gladiator and rewarded Crowe partly because he carried the film's heroic narrative on his shoulders so successfully. In hindsight, though, there is a sense that Crowe's best performances happened either just before or just after Gladiator, making this Oscar feel slightly misplaced. While Maximus has become iconic, it's worth noting that Hollywood often rewards actors for roles that become cultural touchstones rather than purely for a performance's artistic merits. 15. Jennifer Hudson, Dreamgirls. Jennifer Hudson's Best Supporting Actress win for Dreamgirls, 2006, was widely lauded at the time, particularly for her powerful rendition of "And I Am Telling You I'm Not Going," which effectively brought the house down. However, many argue that her victory highlights the Academy's occasional tendency to conflate impressive singing with acting prowess. While Hudson is undeniably a phenomenal vocalist and delivered raw emotional energy in her musical numbers, the character of Effie White is also underwritten in the film's second half, giving her limited scope to develop the role's dramatic arc. Critics contend that performers such as Cate Blanchett, who played the multifaceted teacher in Notes on a Scandal, may have offered deeper, more complex work that year. Additionally, some question whether Hudson's immediate success in winning an Oscar overshadowed the need for seasoning and growth as an actress. Her subsequent roles have not approached the acclaim of her breakthrough. In the broader scheme, Hudson's win exemplifies the weight the Academy sometimes places on big, show-stopping moments over consistently layered acting. Fans of musicals might have found her an inspired choice, but others believe that awarding her so early placed unrealistic expectations on her career trajectory, overshadowing the film itself and other worthy contenders. 16. George Clooney, Syriana. George Clooney's win for Best Supporting Actor in Syriana, 2005, raised eyebrows, primarily because his performance, while solid, is not especially memorable compared to his stronger work in other films. Syriana itself tackled topical issues of oil politics and international intrigue, but Clooney's role as a weary CIA operative is often overshadowed by the film's complex, multi-narrative structure. Detractors suggest that the Academy rewarded Clooney more for his reputation as a Hollywood statesman, charismatic, politically engaged, and skilled in multiple cinematic arenas, than for this specific portrayal, his direction of Good Night and Good Luck. That same year, as well as his general activism, might have contributed to a halo effect. Many feel Clooney's turn in Up in the Air, released a few years later, showcased a far more compelling blend of vulnerability and charm, making it a more Oscar-worthy performance. Additionally, in a film jam-packed with various storylines, Clooney's part sometimes feels almost tangential, never quite capitalizing on the emotional heft that a complex spy saga might demand. Consequently, while Clooney remains a respected industry figure, his Syriana win feels like a placeholder, a nod for being Hollywood's Renaissance man, rather than the strongest supporting actor performance of 2005. 17. Morgan Freeman, Million Dollar Baby. Morgan Freeman's Oscar for Million Dollar Baby, 2004, came after multiple iconic roles, from Red in The Shawshank Redemption to Detective Somerset in Seven. Many fans had been clamoring for the Academy to recognize his contributions for years. However, his role in Million Dollar Baby as Eddie "Scrap Iron" Dupree is often seen as little more than a narrative device, offering intermittent voiceovers and paternal wisdom to Clint Eastwood's gruff boxing trainer. critics question whether Freeman truly had enough to do in this film to warrant a Best Supporting Actor statuette. Sure, he's the affable mentor figure, but that character type has become a Freeman staple. So the performance can seem like a rehash of his signature calm, guiding presence. Some suggest he should have won for The Shawshank Redemption, or even Driving Miss Daisy, where he was at least the co-lead, rather than being belatedly acknowledged for a role that doesn't stretch his abilities. Freeman's post-million-dollar baby career also continued to feature him in narrator or side mentor roles, reinforcing the notion that he was awarded for playing the exact kind of part he's often typecast in. While the film itself triumphed that year, many remain unsure whether Freeman's subtle but limited performance was truly the best supporting turn of 2004. 18. Denzel Washington, Training Day. Denzel Washington's turn as corrupt LAPD detective Alonzo Harris in Training Day, 2001, was undeniably electric, showcasing a darker side to an actor often celebrated for his heroic, upstanding characters. Yet, many fans and critics who admire Washington's career argue that the Academy robbed him of an Oscar for more nuanced work in films like Malcolm X, Glory, for which he did win Best Supporting Actor, though many feel it should have been a lead win, or Cry Freedom. The idea is that Training Day was a make-up win, awarding Washington for a showy villainous role rather than for the complex portrayal of Malcolm X, which many consider one of the greatest performances of the 1990s. Compounding the controversy, it's widely believed that Russell Crowe would have clinched the Best Actor award for A Beautiful Mind had he not faltered in his awards campaign that year. Therefore, detractors see Washington's Training Day win as an odd twist of fate, overshadowing the times when he truly warranted recognition. While Alonzo Harris is undeniably memorable, quotable, and terrifying, there remains a lingering sense that this was an Oscar driven by behind-the-scenes politics and timing. It's a testament to Washington's talent that even a lesser awarding role still resonates, but the choice continues to fuel debate among film enthusiasts. 19th. Jack Nicholson, As Good as It Gets. Jack Nicholson's portrayal of Melvin Udall, a misanthropic, obsessive-compulsive writer in As Good as It Gets, 1997, is the kind of performance that plays directly to Nicholson's strengths: sarcasm, edgy humor, and bursts of charm buried under layers of hostility. While it delighted audiences enough to net him his third Oscar, many critics feel this performance didn't demand the full extent of Nicholson's considerable range. Much like Al Pacino's win for Scent of a Woman, there's a suspicion that the Academy awarded Nicholson here as a capstone of his legendary career, rather than strictly for the merit of this particular role. The film itself can come off as a slightly contrived romantic comedy drama, with Nicholson's insults aimed at everyone from waitresses to pets. A deeper look reveals that the character's redemption arc is surprisingly shallow, relying on sitcom-like coincidences and forced comedic beats to engineer empathy. Moreover, Nicholson's later role in About Schmidt offered a more subtly transformative performance that arguably merited greater accolades. In the end, As Good as It Gets feels like a crowd-pleasing comedic romance that soared largely because of Nicholson's star power and comedic timing, leaving many to question whether this was truly among the all-time great Best Actor triumphs. 20th. James Coburn, Affliction. James Coburn was a Hollywood mainstay for decades, known for his distinctive gravelly voice and tough guy persona. His supporting role in Affliction, 1997, saw him playing Glenn Whitehouse, the abusive father of Nick Nolte's troubled Wade. While Coburn brings an unsettling menace to the screen, it's also a role that can read as one-dimensional, defined chiefly by anger and cruelty. Some critics believe the Academy chose to honor Coburn at this late stage in his life as a form of lifetime achievement, rather than purely on the strength of this specific performance. Affliction is a dark, moody film that highlights the cyclical nature of abuse. But Coburn's part doesn't grant him as much complexity or screen time as one might expect from an Oscar-winning role. In truth, Nolte carries the emotional weight of the film, leaving Coburn's portrayal of patriarchal brutality feeling like a small, if pivotal, piece of the puzzle. Additionally, Coburn's long, storied career had many roles that could have warranted recognition, making Affliction an odd place for the Academy to finally bestow an Oscar. After decades of on-screen toughness, his unpleasant father figure cameo stands out mostly for its shock value rather than dramatic depth, fueling debate on whether it was truly worthy of the win. 21st. Helen Hunt, As Good as It Gets. Helen Hunt was a TV darling for years on Mad About You, earning multiple Emmys and establishing herself as a relatable girl-next-door figure. When she transitioned to film, As Good as It Gets, 1997, provided her a high-profile platform alongside Jack Nicholson. Her role as Carol Connolly, a struggling single mother and waitress, centers on her no-nonsense attitude and comedic sparring with Nicholson. Yet, the film's sentimental bent and surface-level depiction of Carol's personal challenges lead some critics to question whether it's really an Oscar-caliber performance. Her character's biggest moments hinge on frustration, exasperation, and, ultimately, improbable romantic tension with Nicholson's curmudgeonly Melvin Udall. Critics who bristle at her Oscar win argue that many actresses could have navigated the screenplay's combination of scolding sarcasm and tearful vulnerability just as convincingly. Moreover, considering the competition that year, most notably Judi Dench in Mrs. Brown, Hunt's victory can feel like a crowd-pleasing choice that aligned with the film's box office success. Over time, Hunt's post-Oscar career has been relatively low-profile, rarely reaching similar heights of acclaim, suggesting that this was a case of lightning in a bottle for a performer better known for charming television audiences than delivering extraordinary, award-worthy film performances. 22nd, Kim Basinger, L.A. Confidential. Kim Basinger's Best Supporting Actress win for L.A. Confidential, 1997, startled many observers, not because she was unwatchable, but because her performance as a high-class call girl felt notably outshone by the film's male leads and overall ensemble. While she certainly looked the part, channeling a Veronica Lake mystique, her role offered limited emotional depth compared to other contenders that year. Indeed, L.A. Confidential is a masterpiece of modern noir, rich with tension and intrigue. But Basinger's turn is overshadowed by the sharper, more complex performances from Guy Pearce, Russell Crowe, and Kevin Spacey. Some see Basinger's Oscar as a reflection of Hollywood's fixation on rewarding glamorous portrayals of female characters in prestige projects, rather than the more challenging or substantial roles often overlooked. Furthermore, her post-LA Confidential career never cemented her as a powerhouse actress who could consistently deliver high-caliber performances. In hindsight, her victory feels more like the Academy tipping its hat to LA Confidential's ensemble success, while simultaneously affirming Basinger's industry comeback after a series of personal and professional setbacks. The result is a win that stands out mostly for its surprise factor rather than unanimous critical agreement on her work's merit. 23rd, Julia Roberts, Erin Brockovich. Julia Roberts was one of the biggest movie stars in the world by the time she donned Erin Brockovich's revealing outfits and unstoppable tenacity. The 2000 film follows the real-life single mother who took on a major corporation over water contamination. While Roberts brings undeniable charm and star power to the role, some critics argue that the performance doesn't transcend the standard feisty underdog template, especially when compared to the more nuanced roles overlooked by the Academy that year. Roberts' win is often chalked up to her star status and the sense that it was Julia's time after memorable early career nominations. Steel Magnolias, Pretty Woman, fell short. Moreover, Erin Brockovich is a slick, well-made movie, but it doesn't necessarily push the boundaries of filmmaking or acting. Roberts' portrayal largely hinges on witty banter, a sassy attitude, and a few dramatic confrontations, rarely dipping into deeper emotional complexity. Although the real Erin Brockovich's story is compelling, many feel that the film's mainstream approach and Roberts' celebrity overshadowed more artful or challenging performances that year. Ultimately, the Oscars seemed to validate Roberts' colossal stardom more than it recognized an extraordinary acting achievement, leaving the door open for debate over whether it was fully deserved. 24th, Daniel Day-Lewis. There Will Be Blood. Daniel Day-Lewis is widely respected for his method intensity and exacting approach to character, exemplified in There Will Be Blood, 2007. He plays Daniel Plainview, an ambitious oil man whose greed and misanthropy escalate to monstrous proportions. The film's first half impresses with Day-Lewis's quietly domineering presence, building tension through minimal dialogue and physical nuance. Yet, the final act, featuring the infamous "I drink your milkshake" confrontation in the bowling alley, has been criticized for tipping into near-parody levels of over-the-top rage. While many consider this climax iconic, others see it as a heavy-handed display of scenery chewing that undermines the film's earlier, more grounded intensity. Some argue the Academy was simply waiting to hand Day-Lewis another trophy after earlier accolades for My Left Foot, and they were entranced by the sheer audacity of his performance rather than its overall cohesion. The result is a role that, while undeniably memorable, can feel unbalanced and overly theatrical in its final movements. Detractors claim this overshadowed subtler contenders that year. In fairness, Day-Lewis remains a master craftsman, but his There Will Be Blood Oscar underlines how the Academy can sometimes conflate loud, bombastic moments with deeper, more finely tuned acting throughout a film's entire runtime.